It's a boo fam. Peace and blessings. This is Derric RauKhu. And sorry it's been a minute since I've actually posted anything. Had some situations I had to deal with, some family situations I had to deal with. As a matter of fact, because of those situations, I am kind of convinced, okay? And, if you got a difference in argument, please drop it in the comment section below. But I'm kind of convinced, family, that um, this whole we got to save the people. I'm starting to think this really is an illusion, you know, or let me rephrase that. I believe it is an illusion, you know. Um, the first time we heard about trying to save people, or people basically, leaders trying to, do something to save people. It was back in the 60s and 70s, you know. Um, of course, you heard, Martin Luther King, he was all about that. Um, Malcolm was about that. Elijah Muhammad, he was about that. You know, a lot of the leaders back then, they were all about that. And for the most part, um, a lot of them, they kind of came out of that, I would say, kind of like a evangelical movement type of deal, whereas they felt like they were preaching, and they had to do certain things in order to save the people. But the more and more I look at it now, the more and more I look at it, and I look at how the dynamics are, and I think about all the things that's going on. What are we saving them from? You know, I mean, understand what I mean when I'm saying, when I'm asking that. I mean, I understand that we all know when you become conscious of certain things. You become, when you're conscious, you're aware of certain ills that exist that are preventing you from doing certain things. For instance, if you are conscious in regards to certain things that are causing problems in our community, you know, you cease doing it. Okay, so we know that, we understand that part, but the part that I'm getting at, when I'm saying about saving people, is the whole thing about, you know, you can't force an individual to be conscious. And the more and more I think about this, the more and more I kind of look at this whole idea of trying to, help people and all that. I mean, don't get me wrong. If somebody comes to me and they ask for some help and I'm able to help them, sure, by all means, okay? That's part of my responsibility as being a conscious individual. The knowledge, the wisdom is not it is not supposed to be locked up by one group or by anybody, okay? It is free for everyone, all right? But what I mean by, you can't basically make a person become conscious, you know? And the more and more I look at some of us trying to, we're trying to make people become conscious. We're trying to make people, or we're trying to save our people, or whatever the case is. The more and more I think about it, kind of makes me think about being, in the church. And then it's like, isn't that the same argument they used when they was up at the pulpit and they were like, hey, come to Jesus because Jesus is going to save you? Isn't that the same argument? You know? Now, I know it's not the same. I know consciousness is not the same, okay? But I'm saying the way in which the way in which we're promoting it, when we're talking about, hey, we're trying to save people or whatever the case is, it's almost like we're trying to, it's almost like we're trying to preach to people to change their way of, their way of life, okay? Just to give you an example of what I mean with this, or how this even came about. So we're talking about this whole, one of the things, and this is part of it, but we're talking about that whole BET thing. Okay. Now, I don't know a whole lot of people that watch BET. I mean, first of all, it's not owned by us. So because it's not owned by us, I mean, why would you expect them to, to do right by us. Okay? I mean, what's his name? The basketball player, Kwame Brown, he spoke about it, talking about it's an attack on masculinity. I mean, are you kidding me? No, it's an attack on the entire family. But we as conscious individuals know this, okay? It's the people who aren't conscious. It's the people who it's the people who don't, they're so enthralled by all of this, that don't recognize that this is an issue. They don't see it as an attack. Oh, it's just entertainment. So it's like, why, you can't force a person, you can't force anybody to become conscious. Okay? And it brings me back to, it basically helped me to understand something, brings me back to an understanding. Remember, and I said this in a previous video, the Ra is, the Ra is symbolized as the sun, because that's as far as the Ra's rays go, okay? Set being the youngest, Set being the youngest of the siblings, the youngest of the Necharu, Set being the most immature, the most egotistical, the one that's prone to violence because of the most chaotic, the one that has no he has no self-discipline or anything. That's pretty much what we're trying to be conscious from. When we're talking about being conscious, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about rising up from that Setian level, okay? So when people are on that Setian level, I mean, they're just there. And unless they actually realize that, unless they see the actual ill that they're doing, or they see, hey, the wrong that's actually being occurred, okay, there's not a whole lot you can really do. It's just not a whole lot that can actually be done, okay? So I'm saying this basically to say, we got to just go in here and we got to move on. We can't sit up here and focus on trying to save our folks. The best way to save our folks is to save ourselves. The best way to save our folks is to be an example to them, so that eventually, if it happens in, this lifetime or the next or whatever, eventually when they come around and they start to see, oh, okay, this is what you're talking about, we're already in it, okay? We're already in it. We're able to basically help them and instruct them that way, all right? So hopefully that helped you. Like I said, just dealing with some situations and what have you. We all deal with them. So just wanted to let you know about that. And as I've stated before, thanks again for your support. Thanks again for, liking, subscribing. You got any questions or so, drop me a line. Had to poo. Peace.
Baby, I'm sending all my love to you. Here she goes again. I can feel her eyes